Hello, everyone. Welcome back to season 3 of Wisdom Work with Christa and Christy. I am Christy McCaffrey, one of your hosts, and I'm joined by my co-host, the amazing Christa Mantey. Hello, Christa.
Hi, Chris. Hi, everybody.
We are excited to be back here, fresh off of a summer break, which we've been doing for the past 2 seasons. We've taken the summer off, and I don't know about you, Chris, but I have really been liking that pause because it gets me really excited to jump back into it when we get to recording again, which we are now. It's just a fun feeling to know that we're about to have these conversations again that really are nourishing for me. And I know they probably are for you too, Chris. And hopefully, our biggest hope is that they're nourishing for everyone here who's listening and just supportive and encouraging and motivating on all of our journeys on this wisdom work path. If you're new to us, welcome. The conversations here are really a sacred space. This is just a place for us to have honest conversations about our own personal growth and spiritual journeys. Our Krista and I share our experiences with each topic that we hit. We try to give you relatable advice and examples, but we also are not experts and we don't claim to be. We are just two women who have been walking this personal growth or spiritual journey, whichever term you'd like to use to explain it. But we've been both walking this path for the past decade, really. And side by side, in a lot of ways, we've had these conversations ongoing for a really long time and just been supporting each other. And that is why we created the Wisdom Work podcast, because we want to share our own wisdom with everybody else and encourage you to tap into your own wisdom so that you can grow and evolve on your own path too. So that being said, welcome back, everybody. We're really happy to be here, as I said. And I am going to introduce our first topic of the new season, which is perspective. Yeah. So I'm going to start by asking you, Chris, what does the word perspective bring up for you when you hear it? In general, but also right now, as we're starting off on a new school year, a new season, what does the word perspective bring up for you?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Great intro and welcome back, everybody. We're so happy to be here. So when we were chatting about the theme and the topic that was coming through for us, I was doing the dishes last night and just pondering perspective. And I was thinking about what do I want to bring to this conversation, or what does this word mean to me? Like you just asked. And for me, it's how I look at things. And I've heard from clients and other people I've talked to, like, oh, I like your positive perspective on that. And I think it's changed over the years. I think perspective for me was like how I just looked at situations or how I looked at things that were coming up in my life. And I think I could have, and I still can, take a very victim approach to my life and what's happening, like it's happening to me, but I'm much more aware of that and try to shift that perspective to being grateful for the pinch points or the quote suffering or pain that I'm feeling in life. Is that's an opportunity for me to grow. That's an edge that I've met. So having that type of perspective and saying, like, thank you for this opportunity for me to look deeper in myself, because like we say, the wounds or the triggers are our teachers. So learning to make peace with that. And I had this example over the summer where I was feeling some big, big, big emotions. And I was like, what is going on? Like, this is not normal. And it's something like we talk about on other episodes around, we thought we were done this. And then another spiral comes around to teach us around the same lesson. And I was feeling a lot of big emotions, a lot of negative emotion, quote, negative emotions like anger and rage, and just feeling a lot. And I kept sitting with the feelings, and I'm like, what are you here to teach me? What is happening? I'm not going to leave you. Like, what do you need me to see? And what came through was mind blowing to me and heart opening, which has always been my prayers, to like open my heart a little bit more, especially to my family, like my husband and my son, be a little bit more soft and loving and tender. And that's exactly what I got. I got this perspective, like blast almost, around, you think you were being loving and you weren't loving them at all. And it was just this like, oh my gosh, like I just felt a huge clarity wave come over me, to be like, what I thought I was doing was not working. It was like, yeah, I don't even want to go into that. But what I found and what I saw was that I need to be able to soften even more with them, and to love and be more tender even more with them. And it was just a fascinating perspective shift, because here I am thinking like, like I'm so nice going about my day, like, and my husband always says like my tone can really be not the best around him. So I was like, yeah, you know what? You're right. Like this was the perspective shift for me, where I was like, you are right. Like I always want to be right and feel right just in my way of thinking about things. And when I had this like awakening, it was just like, oh my God, you are so right. Like I am awful to you a lot of the time. So I am so sorry. And we had this beautiful conversation. So for me, it was this perspective shift that happened. It was the gold that came out of the dirt and like the mud, which, we always say like, hang in there, because a breakdown eventually becomes a breakthrough. So just don't give up when it gets hard.
Yes. That one. I always want to be like Oprah and say, like, that's a
That's
tweetable
a
moment.
tweetable.
Your breakdown is what
I'll
leads you
write
to
it
the
down.
breakthrough. And
Yes.
thank you, first of all, so much for sharing that, because that's just a vulnerable thing to share. And I really appreciate you saying that, because it's super relatable. And I love your take on perspective in that situation, because I do think that that is the beauty in this personal growth journey, is that your perspective is actually constantly being shifted. If you're willing to do the work, if you're willing to grow and change and evolve, it means that you also have to realize that like you're going to get these little nuggets of perspective shift that are amazing and mind-blowing and eye-opening if you let them happen. And I also love how you were saying that, you can sometimes be in that victim mode, which I think we are all absolutely, I don't want to say guilty of, but fall victim to that whole notion of being the victim, and how you can shift your perspective from this is happening to me versus this is happening for me. That I read that somewhere a really long time ago, and it still comes up for me often when I'm in those kind of situations where I notice myself feeling like, why is this happening to me? Why is this person treating me this way? Why is this situation not going my way? And I stop myself now and say, this is not happening to me. This is happening for me. All of those moments that are super uncomfortable for you in your life are really there with great purpose. If you're willing to be open to seeing it that way, there's so much truth in these lessons are here to teach us and grow us. And all the while, our perspective is shifting in beautiful new ways. And I think my take on perspective is similar to yours, Chris, and that I just think the more that I focus on being open to, like you were saying, like opening my heart, opening myself up to not needing to be in control of my life so much, which we all struggle with that as well. But Christa and I both really struggle with that early on in our journeys. Like we talk about that together a lot. And I think we've brought it up quite a few times on this podcast, that we both were struggled with a need to control, or just a need to control our own path, not even necessarily needing to control everyone around us, needing to control our own circumstances, of being really driven and always in this forward motion of pushing and trying to get reach for more in life in positive ways. I mean, I think we both were always trying to find more positive things that we could build into our life experience, but we were operating with this energy that was so forceful. And as I've started to change my approach in life to be more open and flowing and letting things happen and letting things unfold, that's when I've had miraculous shifts in perspective that have been deeply eye-opening for me. I was just telling Christa about the fact that this time last year, I was hustling, trying to find what my next move was going to be career-wise. And I was applying for jobs, I was interviewing for jobs, and got to one, and I thought I really wanted it, and then it didn't work out, and I was devastated. Long story short, in the months to follow, I realized my path was leading me towards starting my own business and my own production company, which I have done since. And now this past summer, I had like a lineup of jobs that I absolutely loved working on. This job is turning out to be so fulfilling and meaningful for me. And now I have this perspective when I look back of, I was a completely different person a year ago, completely different person. And that's not good, bad, or anything. It just is what it is. I'm a different person than I was last year. And my perspective on my career and my, where I want my career to go from here is completely different than it was a year ago. And I'm so grateful for that, because the only way I landed here with so much gratitude and purpose and meaning is because I let that be a teachable moment for me a year ago. I let the disappointment that I was feeling, I let myself feel it, but I also reminded myself, because I've done so much work around this kind of thing, I reminded myself that this is happening for me, that not getting that job was not happening to me, it was happening for me, and that must mean something better is in store. And it was. And I was naturally guided to a better situation for myself. So perspective also, I think, is really important, around like looking back on just seasons of your life, being able to just look back on, who you were, who you've become, who you're still becoming, just allowing yourself to take a break and like really genuinely assess those things. Like, where was I? What have I gone through? Being really proud of yourself for what you've gone through and how you've gotten yourself from point A to point B is, I think, really, really important thing to do for yourself. I try to focus on that a lot more recently. I've been trying to say to myself, what are the ways you've grown, and take a minute to appreciate that and thank yourself, for putting in the work and allowing yourself to grow and allowing yourself to change, which is very hard. Change is very hard. But I think on this wisdom work journey, on this growth journey, it's equally important to, the hard work you're putting in. What's equally important is recognizing your growth and appreciating yourself for your growth and appreciating yourself for putting in the time and the energy that nobody else even knows you've done, right? We're all going through a lot on our own and our own personal ways. If we don't stop and take a beat to say to ourselves, you're doing good. Look at what you've overcome. You may not be where you want to be in this situation or in that lane of your life, but look at what you've overcome. Look at how far you've come. And every single one of us can say that. You have accomplished things, you have healed things, you have moved past things, you have let go of things. Honor that. And I think that's the perspective I'm really trying to sit with right now, personally.
So beautiful. I love that what you're saying is reminding me of just being more soft and tender with ourselves first, and being able to acknowledge how far we've all come in our own journeys and overcome so many different challenges in our lives, whatever that may be. And it's funny you say that, Chris, because recently I just started keeping a gratitude journal. We had like one of the best summers ever, which I'm like, still, my heart's blown open and with gratitude, and just like wanting to soak that in more and more and more, because these good times for me with the wisdom work journey that I've been on, it's like, we got to hold on to those good times and know that the pinch points will come too. So when it's good, when the getting's good, like really savor it. So I've been trying to do that with journaling and just writing out like all the things that are great, because I was just telling you before we started recording, like the most unbelievable, energizing trip back east this summer to visit friends and family. And it was just so full with love and appreciation and gratitude and graciousness and generosity. And it was just like a lot to take in because it was so overwhelmingly good. So I said to John Paul, my husband, I was like, I got to start writing because there's so much that happened. And I was like taking notes on my phone at night, like just recapping our days, because there was so much love that was pouring in. I just wanted to capture it all and savor it and just enjoy it and relish in it, because it's not always the case, So when we came back, it still kept going and it was all still good. Damon, my son, did his first surf camp this summer, and it was just like an amazing week being on the beach for that long, watching him have fun with his friends. And so anyway, just been trying to keep track of all the good things that are happening and writing down what I'm grateful for at the end of each day. And it is true. Like they study this at University of Pennsylvania around positive psychology. Like your brain, we are trained to look for the bad in life. We are wired for survival, which is a good thing. It keeps us alive. However, the positive things that happen to us slide off like Teflon, and the negative cling to us like Velcro. So we remember the negative much better. So it is more of a muscle to program yourself and to utilize and to form these neural pathways that you are looking for the good. And when you start, it's almost like your brain thinks like, oh, I have homework tonight, or whenever you do it, like once a week or every night, however you want to do your gratitudes. But it's like thinking about, okay, what went well today? And I just dropped off a package at FedEx. It was like a random example, but like, because I've been doing this, now I'm looking each day. I'm like, okay, what can I write tonight? So I go to FedEx and I have this package I'm returning, and it's like, I have the return label, which I was so proud of myself. But I didn't tape up the box. I figured like, I'll just do it there and they'll slap on the tape on the, with the label. Well, the guy goes, oh, this isn't a shipping FedEx. It's just a mailing one. So you'd have to go to a shipping one to do all the things, or we sell the tape here. And I was like, oh, all right. And I was like, thank you. And I was about to leave, but I could do the other package I had. So I was doing that one. And he's like, you know what? Here's some tape. And like, he just let me tape it up. And I was like, thank you so much. Like, you don't understand. That saved me like so many different errands. Like I was going to have to go back home. It's a silly little example, but it was just, I called John Paul right away. I was like, you're not going to believe how nice this guy was. He did it. And that was going in my journal that night. So it's like these little things, like somebody holds the door for you. Or I always use the example of like when I go let somebody in traffic and they wave, like that never happens anymore. So I'm always so happy when people do that. And it's like these little things, like paying closer attention to so much of the goodness that happens while we are totally oblivious to it. We're going so fast in our lives, and just slowing down enough to have that perspective of what's going well for me, because so much is.
And what I want to say in addition to that, and it's similar to what you've been talking about here with the gratitude piece, is just having these habits in your life really do start to become just, second nature to you. It's like what I was talking about last season about the practice of self-love, how I was really trying to be intentional about just saying to myself, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself. Because I had heard some guy on a podcast talk about how it changed his life. And I was like, I'm just going to try it. And it has not stopped. And it's what is wild to me still. And I think I was telling you this at the end of last season, was that when my mind goes quiet or I have a pause, the main thought that comes to my head is, I love myself. It is crazy. It is like, so, and the way that I've seen it affect my life is unbelievable, honestly. Like, I was just thinking about this recently, that basically anytime I feel judged by somebody, or I feel disappointed in someone, or I feel hurt, or, any of those quote negative feelings, I now lean so heavily on a self-love practice where I'm immediately saying, I love myself. I love myself. I love myself. And it just like softens the blow of whatever, the judgment I was feeling or the negativity. And it replaces that with this notion of, I'm good.
Mm.
I am okay because I've got my own back. I love myself. So it really, truly, that's what matters most. And it doesn't really matter how that person was judging me, or if they misunderstood me, or, any of those things. And also, I was going to say that that whole habit has helped me to really just, I guess, shift my perspective in terms of, and this kind of plays off of the victim conversation of, I think that in the past, I may have always looked for someone to tell me they were proud of me when I
Mm.
accomplished something. And that may have been what was driving me back in those years when I was hustling, hustling, hustling. It was like just wanting someone to validation, and just wanting someone
Yes.
to say, you're a good girl, you're doing good,
Right.
you're making the right choices, what you're doing is impressing me, or whatever. And as I've gotten older, and more so, it's really just this path and this journey that I've been on of personal growth, where I've now replaced that, and it's hand in hand with this self-love piece. I've replaced it with this idea and this energy of, I can be proud of myself. I can do that for myself. It doesn't mean that it's not nice if somebody's proud of me, or it doesn't make me feel like that makes me feel good. It's nice. But the truth is, nothing feels better than when I am alone with myself and I've just accomplished a big goal, and I'm able to say to myself, I am so proud of you. I'm
Mm.
so proud of you, because only I know intimately how hard it was to get to that point, all the steps I took to get there, all the fears I overcame, all the obstacles that were thrown my way. Truly, there's not another person on this planet that knows that better than me. So isn't it the best that like the praise come from me, and that
Amen.
I'm able to say to myself, like, it just happened to me yesterday. I got paid for a job that I had been doing, and it was a significant, it was a big project. It was a significant goal. I was really proud of accomplishing it. And, a year ago, I was thinking, what's my job even going to be? How
Right.
am I going to make a living? And now here I am, like, it was on the way to the bank. I was on my way to the bank to cash a check. And I was just saying to myself, like, I am so damn proud of you. I'm so proud of you. And it really felt so much more powerful than if any other person in my life had said to me, I'm proud of you. It wouldn't have meant as much as it meant to say that to myself. And
Mm.
so that was a perspective shift for me, big time. And I wanted to share that as I was sort of thinking about what we were going to talk about today, because I don't think that we're encouraged enough to have that relationship with ourselves. And the truth is, it feels weird at first. The self-love practice feels very awkward and strange and icky, kind of, because we are not used to loving ourselves. And that's
Right.
so sad.
Right.
We are not used to loving ourselves. We've never been told that it's okay to. We've never been encouraged to take ownership over, like, our having pride in ourselves and that being a positive thing. And it's not like an egotistical thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think it's important to have that conversation and remind people that, be proud of yourself for every single thing you've overcome, everything, because nobody knows it more intimately. That story and all that you've overcome, nobody knows it better than you. And so you should be very proud of yourself.
Mm-hmm. I love that, Chris. You're right. Not only were we not taught how to do that, we were taught that it's bad.
Yeah.
So we have to
And
overcome
shameful.
all
So
and
you're
shameful.
feeling shame
How dare
when
you
you
be
started.
proud? Yeah. Because yeah, I think you're right. You bring up like the ego-based stuff, which obviously we're not talking about that type of pride. We're talking about like this loving pride of like, yeah, you did a lot of hard work and it paid off.
Mhm.
Be proud. That's awesome. And
Keep supporting yourself.
yeah, and share it with people that are supportive, like in a sacred space, or in sacred relationships where you know that you will receive the appropriate validation. Share that, because that gives permission. Like Chris and I, we have this relationship where we can say, hey, I just went to the bank and cashed a huge check, and we didn't even know that was happening last year. Like, remember that? And I can celebrate her. I can honestly be so excited and proud because this beautiful being has done what she came and set out to do. And that's inspiring to me. So if you have relationships like that, awesome. And cherish them, and really share back and forth with one another, because that will help to push us forward as a species, like evolve the mindset, evolve the love to, we can celebrate each other's wins. We don't have to be jealous. We don't have to be like, and I think this is actually a really important thing, not to diminish jealousy or resentment or any other perceived negative emotion. That's just telling you you want what they have. That's a good thing. That's inspiration on the other side of the coin. It's like, okay, I'm really celebrating Christy, and like a piece of me is like, I want that too. So I'm seeing her out in the world doing her thing, and she is just cruising, and it's wonderful to watch, and I'm like totally celebrating her. And then a piece of me is like, I could do that. I want to do that too. It's every role model we have. Think about the person that has influenced you a lot in your life. Whatever name comes to mind, whether they're dead or alive, like all of that they have done to teach us or to inspire us, like they had the courage, they had to overcome all their limiting beliefs to do what they did. They didn't say, oh, well, somebody else is doing that, I'm not going to do it. Like, one of our teachers, Marie Forleo, she always says, like, the world needs that special thing that only you have. So please have the courage to go out and do it, because nobody else is packaged like you. Nobody else has the unique skill set and way you'll style the lesson or inspiration in your own way. And the world is yearning for it. So keep going on your path, keep doing what you want to do. Like, this is what I always say is with Joseph Campbell's work, is follow your bliss. Like these little breadcrumbs, follow what makes you happy, because not everybody is happy by those things. That's just for you. So don't deny yourself the pleasure. Like, go for what makes you happy, go for what lights you up, because that's guiding you towards your thing. And I
This
just,
is so crazy that you just said that. It's so crazy. Let me tell you why. Because I've read several books in the past week. I'm jumping in and out of things, all that are, our type of thing. And
I'll need
the
those names.
same topic keeps coming up. And the same very exact point, and it's what you're talking about. And it's leaning into joy,
Yeah.
as letting joy be your guide in your everyday life. It's exactly what you're saying. And it's so funny that you can hear these concepts a million times, and then all of a sudden one day, I mean, I've read these books a million times,
Uh-huh.
and I continue to read them again, because this is what happens. All of a sudden you're hit with this aha moment where you're like, I read that 25 times, but for some reason today it feels like major shift is happening in my perspective.
Yes.
And that's what happened around the topic of joy. And basically what all of these teachings were saying is, wake up every day and make joy your guide, make joy your priority. Because also talking about the things that we've been taught that, success and happiness and all the things we think we want are going to happen only when you grind and
Mhm.
put in that grunt work and do things you hate doing. But you know what? You're going to get the happy. If you work really hard, you're going to get to happy. And I think we're all kind of realizing that that's not really how it works. I mean, it doesn't mean that, you know, things that you want in life don't, come to you without hard work. Hard work is definitely a part of the puzzle, but what if we put priority on joy? And while we're doing the hard things, we find joy and happiness and fun along the way. And
Amen.
what all of these principles have been saying is, like, the more you prioritize joy, the more you're attracting to yourself more joyful and fun and more success, whatever success is to you. And to your point, Chris, when you choose things that are specifically joyful for you, then you are specifically in return going to get more opportunities to do the things that are aligned for you.
Yes.
And that really is the way that this whole energetic situation works. Like you get back what you put out. So if whatever you focus on, wherever you focus, the energy flows. We've got all these sayings. There's probably about 20 that we could pull out that speak to that. But, where your energy goes is where, the next thing comes to you directly related to that energy. And so if our perspective on life is primarily negative, defensive, and in a victim mindset, then you know what? Unfortunately, you're going to continue to be met with frustrating circumstances, disappointing relationships, you name it. The negative things that could play out in your life are going to continue to come to you when your perspective is stuck in that space. Mm-hmm. But if you wake up every morning with gratitude as the first thing you think of, right? Like, thank you for, I'm so grateful I'm healthy. I'm so grateful that I've got my family, I've got my home, I've got, the simplest things, gratitude. Then you move into, I want joy to be my guide today. How can I find joy? And just as Christa was saying, throughout her day, she's finding moments that she's going to be able to write about at night that she's grateful for. Look for those moments where you can find joy and you can maybe write about them too. Like, I found this unexpected moment of joy while I was, honestly,
for a package of FedEx.
Yes, I was going to say, and honestly, for me today, it's my youngest went to kindergarten, which is monumental on so many levels. And any mom out there whose last child has gone off to kindergarten knows, you're like, whoa. But I'm still driving him to he has like a morning program before he goes to afternoon kindergarten. So we still have this special time in the car together in the mornings that will go away next year because he'll be on the bus full time. And our thing is, last year he liked to listen to the Lumineers on the way to school. And it was so cute. I don't know why he got like hooked on them. I'm not necessarily a huge Lumineers fan, but like I like them. But and now he's on Kane Brown, the country singer. Okay. And I just had this moment of absolute joy driving him to school and seeing him sing along to his favorite song, his current favorite song.
Yeah.
And I'm going to hold that with me for the rest of the day. It's like that, like recognizing those moments of joy. And like Christa was saying earlier, you have to actually be more intentional about holding on to those joyful moments, because unfortunately we're hardwired to hold on to the bad things that happen in our day. It's just about your intention, and it's about focusing on the positive and holding on to it tight and strengthening that muscle. Then in time, you're going to notice more joy in your day. You're going to notice more moments to be grateful. And the negative stuff isn't actually going to bother you as much. Mm-hmm. That's what happens, is that like the balance shifts and you go from, it doesn't mean no negativity exists. It doesn't mean that frustrating, annoying, negative stuff doesn't happen to you, but your perspective has shifted and your experience has shifted when you are strengthening that muscle of focusing on the positive.
So true. And I just want to go like wrap it up even further, because we talk a lot about like our practices or our habits and helping us be better. And that's great. And I always want to like, for everybody trying to be like, well, it's not all about me. It's like, no, it actually is about making sure your light is shining the brightest so that you can be the best servant to everyone you love. Because if I am lit up by the FedEx guy giving me some tape, I'm going to go let somebody else in traffic. I'm going to be like extra gracious to my husband when I walk in the door. Or, it's just these like these sliding door moments that you can choose joy and choose light, as opposed to choosing victim and darkness. because this is what the moments of our life are made up of. And if we are in this path of like, and like I'm just hearing like the naysayers or like devil's advocate, where it's like, well, if I'm just always in pleasure, or if I'm always choosing joy, like what about the other stuff? And like, what about the stress? And it's like Christy said, like the hard stuff will happen. It just won't be as hard because you're already in so much joy. So it feels almost effortless. And you're like, yeah, this is just the name of the game. Like, obviously I have to do some stuff, like put in the work, but it feels much better to do it because you're like bookended with bliss and joy, because you're
buffering,
you're
really.
buffering. Thank you. Yeah, it's a great image to say that. It's like, almost, my son always uses the word force field. It's like you got a force field of peace and joy and love and bliss in, like, buffering you from the external chaos and noise and tension that is always going to be present. So it's a matter of finding, and this goes back to your Zen diagram, Chris, like with making sure you are in your safe bubble, you're putting yourself, your needs, your self-care, your healthy habits. Like this time of year, that my perspective is grounding in healthy habits. You know, with the extra time and quiet that I have with my son being back at school, it's like, all right, what do I need to get back on for my health and happiness? Getting back to, you know, more regularity, because we are in more of a routine as opposed to summer. So it's like figuring out what are some of those low-hanging fruit health habits that you can get back on track with, because then you are a better human, right? Like if you're taking great, exquisite care of yourself, you can show up the best you possibly can to any situation, and little things won't bother you as much. You will be more patient. You will be more non-judgmental. You will be more loving. You will be more soft and tender, as opposed to being at your wit's end with everything else going on. And then you just, you know, spew venom at the people you love. It's like, no, we have this opportunity to shift. We have this perspective now. You have heard it here first, or heard it here for the millionth time. It's like, you know, we have the power to choose. We have the power to choose ourselves first, oxygen mask on first, then we help everybody else. Then we can give back to our community. Then once we are full, I cannot stress this enough, because I work with people over and over where they are so empty trying to give. That is not serving anybody, and it's hurting you. So it's not responsible. It is responsible to say no to things you cannot do, because you need to say yes to you first. And to be like, you know what? I need a good workout. I need to meditate. I need to do this. I need to do that. Then I'd be happy to help. But once my practices are done and good, then I can be a much better of service.
Yes, yes, yes. I want to do the, like, you read a poetry reading and you snap instead of clap.
Yeah.
Like, yes. Everything you just said. Yes, yes, yes. And it reminded me too of, again, I'm reading these books, and this story about this, the past few days, my oldest has been saying to me, he said to me the first night back to school, he said, could you read to me whatever you're reading? And I was like, are you sure? Because I'm like, let me tell you what I'm reading first. And so I was reading a Gabrielle Bernstein book for the 100th time. And I was like, I don't know, but I don't know if you're into this. And he was like, sure, I'll listen. Well, it was talking about this leaning into joy and choosing your, you know, where you want to be on the emotional scale and all this positive stuff. And one of the topics that she was talking about, and it's very aligned with what you just said, Chris, is about being a flashlight. Think about, and she said, like, maybe even carry a little flashlight in your pocket to remind you of this. But when you're, like Christa said, like, the world around us is not ever going to stop being loud. There's never going to stop being negativity thrown every which way around you. Our greatest gift that we can give to ourselves is creating this bubble of peace and deeply prioritizing this bubble of peace for ourselves, so that we can be the flashlight in those situations. So when you're with somebody who's being super negative, or, you know, they're playing victim, and they're going on and on about that story of how they're always the victim and everything always, you know, the best thing you can do in those scenarios is not actually, you know, go there with them. You know, it's not helpful to somebody actually if you're like, yeah, that sucks, that's awful. I mean, you don't want to not validate what they're feeling, but if you can focus instead on being the flashlight in that moment and just allow, like, almost even as they're talking, just imagine this like white light around you protecting you from their negativity, but also helping them. Your light, your peace will be a flashlight to their darkness. And, you know, if we can go through our days instead of being defensive to the way that people, you know, project their negativity on us, and instead just quietly say to yourself, like, I'm going to be the flashlight here. I'm just going to hold space for the light here. And maybe that means just saying a prayer for the person. I do that a lot, where I'm like, I just pray, I release you to your highest good, is what I'll say. I refuse to take this energy on, because that's something I've had to overcome in the, you know, over the years of my own journey, is like not taking on, I'm an empathetic person, and not taking on what somebody else is feeling. I just immediately imagine this like bubble of light around myself where I'm like, I'm protected. There's my buffer. I'm here though. I'm still going to hold space for what you're feeling or what you need to say, but I don't have to absorb it. And instead, I'm just going to send light your way. I'm going to silently say, I release you to your highest good. I pray for you. I pray that this frustration and anger or whatever you're feeling heals for you. And I was going to say about like reading this to my son, the sweetest thing was that when I was done reading the first night, he said, I really like this book. And then he like fell asleep. And the next night he said, can you read it to me again? And I was like, oh my God.
How sweet, Chris.
And
Yeah, that's
part of me is
amazing.
like, I'm a little worried that you're going to go out in the world and start saying these things, and people are going to be like, what? You know, your friends, your 10-year-old friends are going to be like, all right, buddy. But also, I know that it's laying the groundwork for some important tools. That's most important, that he's hearing it, he's absorbing it, and it makes him feel good to think about being the light, being positive, counteracting the negativity. You know, we all have the choice. You already said that, Chris, but it cannot be said enough. It's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Way that we live our life, the perspective that we have in our life, it's all a choice. And you can always, I say this to my kids all the time, you can choose again. We can start over. I mean, I can't tell you how many times this summer we had to pull that out, where somebody was getting heated with somebody else, and we'll just say, can we start again? Okay. Take a deep breath, and we try to start fresh. We all have the choice. We can always start over. So I just wanted to say that, in addition to what you were already saying, is that be the flashlight.
I love that. It's a great image. And I love what you said too about you don't have to fix, you can validate, but you don't go into it. That was helpful for me to hear. And just being able to hold the light, hold the flashlight, buffer yourself, energetic hygiene, make sure you have your own protective bubble first. And then the power of prayer, like that is so helpful to just be able to, what I usually do is put them in their own bubble of light and shower them with blessings. And just ask that they be abundantly blessed, like a waterfall of blessings over them and their families and whoever is affected by the suffering. And this is like an energetic blueprint that you're setting for them, which is of the highest good. I always pray of the highest good for every and all beings. Like, may they all be safe and healthy and happy and free and healthy in body and mind. We always say that too at night, where all beings may we be healthy of body and mind, because I think there's so much around the mental health too, where the interpretation of things are skewed, and it's not really what is like and this goes back to perspective. It's like, how we say things may be interpreted very differently than how we mean them. And John Paul and I, my husband and I, do these couples workshops, and part of our teaching from the Gottman Institute, Julie and John Gottman are family therapists, and they talk about part of their framework is holding the positive perspective of your partner, because so many of us will get so annoyed at our roommates and our positive and our partners that it's like, oh, why did you leave your laundry on the floor again? Like, why didn't you just put it in the hamper? Silly examples, but it's like, if we're holding the positive perspective, a different way to look at it is that, you know what, they were probably just busy. They're not trying to ruin my day with this. It's like, I'm going to help him and put it in the hamper, or I'm going to have a conversation when I've punched my pillow or screamed in the car, and transparently say, hey, you know what? When we walk into our bedroom, I'd love to not see your clothes all over the place. So it's like, those types of things. It's like being able to hold a positive perspective around people aren't trying to be annoying or trying to be hurtful to us, at least most, I would say. And being able to say, okay, this is a me problem. What is it going on for me? What is it coming up for me that I need to work through this? Because the perspective here is, for at least what I'm working on in my own home, is that John Paul's a great guy. He's got a lot going on. He's doing his thing and I'm doing my thing. So it's like, we need to be able to be respectful and hold each other in positive light, that we are not trying to hurt one another. We're just needing like an extra hand every once in a while because we have a lot going on. And Brene Brown, one of my other favorites on this podcast, she said on a podcast I was listening to recently that she and her husband walk in the door and say the percentage of what they have left to give the family that night. So
Whoa,
she'll
that's
walk
a
in and be
good one.
like, hi, Steve, I'm at a 25. And he's like, all right, I got you. Like, I can give the other 75. Or she'll walk in, she'll be like, I'm at an 85. I had a great day. And he's like, good, I'm going to need you. Or they're both at 20 and then they have to compromise and figure out like, how's this night going to go? So it's just language around like the emotions again, like giving your partner, your
Powerful.
loved ones a heads up of like, hey, I'm going through some stuff right now. You're going to need to take the lead on this because I don't have it in me.
And I think that there's also so much power in recognizing your own level, like just
Exactly.
even taking
Exactly.
the time to assess what your own level is, because sometimes we act or react out of the fact that we're completely depleted,
Right.
and we're not even giving ourselves the grace to stop and think about that. Like, I'm not being a lunatic because I'm a lunatic. I'm being this way because I'm tapped out
Right.
and I'm overboard here, like I can't. I actually have gotten to the point where like I will straight up tell my kids, just so you know, I recognize that I'm not acting my best right now, but it's because I am on empty.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna need you to help me out.
Right.
And they have sort of rallied around that because it's not all the time, but there's
Yeah.
the moments when I feel it the most. I have to you just have to vocalize it. You have to communicate it, because otherwise that's when feelings get really hurt and
Mhm.
resentment starts to build and nobody knows why. But you know what I mean? And it just gets worse and worse and worse. But if
Oh,
we
I
just
do.
kind of take a second to be honest and open and communicative, again, these are things we were not taught to do. So
Mhm.
also give yourself a break that's not going to come that easily. But, it just being mindful and working towards these things. I'm so excited about how much just came out of this conversation, because,
It's so
not
cute.
just for
I
us,
always am.
to like
Yeah.
get it off our chest, but
Uh-huh.
I think having these conversations and putting it out there is so important, because we have not been taught to talk through these things. We've not been taught the tools. We have not been given the roadmap.
Mhm.
And hopefully, I also just read something earlier today that said something about like the work you're doing, healing yourself and finding new ways of thinking, new ways of communicating, new ways of being that are more positive. You're actually healing generations to come. You are making a massive shift in your family's lineage by doing this work, whether you
Absolutely.
realize that or not. And it's not just going to affect your children, it's going to affect their children and their children's children. So, as hard as it can be to make these changes or to do the work on yourself, or to work with your partner through these hard things, it just keep in mind that you're not just doing good for yourself, you're doing good for the world around you presently, but the people to come as well.
Yeah, I've heard it. A teacher of mine has said 7 generations behind and 7 generations forward. So if you
Wow.
think about, and this was a really cool trippy meditation we did in one of my classes that I was taking. She had all of our ancestors 7 generations back cheering us on.
Woo. I'm
Like
just
they're
giving.
rallying. You're not alone. Like sometimes we feel alone. You're not alone. They are rallying around you, cheering you on for your highest expression in this human form. So
Yes.
you are
So
backed.
proud of you. They're so proud of
They're
you. Like,
so proud of you.
you
They
think
did
about
all of
even the
their,
baby steps you've taken.
yes,
Those are massive steps in some of your
massive,
ancestors' eyes.
massive.
You've 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 conjured up courage and bravery that maybe they're looking and saying, I can't believe you had the courage to do that because I didn't, you
Right.
know? And yeah, like that. Oh, I love that image of seven
Yes. And
generation.
having so much gratitude because their baby steps got us to the freaking pedestal we're on today with being able to speak it on these topics publicly. Like, before us, women would not even be able to discuss these kinds of things in a public setting. Like we would
Without
be
being called
burned
a
at the
witch.
stake. Yeah. Now we are witches, loud and proud. Like, yes, a witch equals a wise woman. That's what it means. So it was made to, slandered over the course of time. So it's reclaiming these parts of us, and they've always been there. That's the thing that Christy and I always tell you, the listeners. It's like you always had this wisdom within you. It's just hearing teachers or books or podcasts or whatever it is for you that's awakening these codes that have been lying dormant for your own safety. Now it's safe. So it's time to wake up. It's time to liven up to now being your fullest expression so that your children and their children and the next children can see, okay, they had the courage to do this in their lifetime. So now I can take it it's like a baton, keep passing the baton so we can further and further the evolution of the species and being hopefully much more kinder and respectful and honest and being able to communicate these things, because before we weren't able to, and now we're learning, and it is hard. So like Christy said, like give yourself a break. If you need to take a break, take a break. This is not a fluent language for us, like communicating emotional needs or being able to share our perspective kindly and clearly all the time. It's like these things take work. It takes time. It takes a lot of patience on our own self to be kind and gentle as we stumble and fall, to pick ourselves back up and to be resilient with our work and our path. So it's worth it. It is extremely liberating and extremely worth it. And knowing, I always love that image of like your team, like your energetic team or your angels or your ancestors, however you want to think about it, or spirit guides, like from animals, the nature. It's like the universe is nudging us along. It like you said, as Gabby B says, it has our back. So it is holding and supporting us and nudging us forward to saying like, it's going to hurt, but you can do this. You can do this, and it's going to be really joyful, and you can do this, like it's all the things, but you are not alone. And we're here for you in this incarnation, as well as your whole spiritual team. So hopefully that will keep you feeling confident that you can do it.
Love that. That was a fabulous way to wrap us up here, Chris, on this topic of perspective. And I hope that everybody lets that really sink in as you listen to everything that Christa just said. Really, like let that soak in, sit with it, because if you think of anything along your own path that seems scary, or daunting, think about the fact that Christa and I are speaking about it publicly. You know, you want to talk about scary?
Yeah, I know, right?
But, and we do it because we know how important it is to hear from other people this encouragement, that yes, it's scary. Yes, it's hard. It's uncomfortable, but it's so worth it.
Mhm.
And, just like Christa was saying, like, it's so joyful. It can be so joyful every step along the way, but it unfortunately comes with the need, the requirement to get your hands dirty and to really work through some stuff. But we're moving our entire species forward, like Christa said, by choosing to do our own work. And there's so much power in focusing more on yourself and how can I better myself, as opposed to getting so caught up in everything and everyone outside of you. You know, it's very easy for us to get caught in what this person says, what that person does, what that person's expecting of me, what that person's judging me for. You know, if your attention's there, it, the suffering is going to be greater. If you can put the intention on how can I take care of myself, heal myself, protect my peace, you know, create this energy that I want to live in. You're still going to suffer, but it will build in a joyful way. And so anyway, I think this conversation about perspective was hopefully a really nourishing one for everybody. It was for me, and I'm sure it was for you too, Chris, as it always is.
Always.
We just love having these conversations, and we're so happy to have everybody back for a new season. We will see you next month. As always, please comment, email us, thewisdomwork@gmail.com. You know, share the podcast. Please tell people about it, because ultimately we want to just reach as many listeners as we can who need to hear this type of conversation and need to feel supported and validated in whatever they're going through. So please share it. And till next time, Chris, anything else?
No, just as we share about perspective, I think we left off last season around thinking about your summer, like doing a forward future meditation or future visioning exercise. So just like Christy said in the beginning, recap, like go back and think about all that you did this past summer, all that you did this past season before we get into the next season. So really appreciating yourself, appreciating all that happened, savoring all of the good, learning from all of the not so great. And we'll see you next time on the Wisdom Work.
Love it. See you next time, everybody.